Hey Optimancers, Chris here. In January 2019, so a little over 3 years ago, I presented a build on this channel that suggested the following combination. But there is one thing we can do that is going to be using our concentration, and that is we can cast the darkness spell. We can do this using our drow ability, and then when we cast the darkness spell on ourselves, we'll be encapsulated in a magical darkness, which means we can't be seen and we can't see, or normally we couldn't see, but because we have Devil's Sight, we can see just fine. Now, it's important to remember when you're using this combination, darkness isn't always party friendly. So where you're positioned compared to the rest of the party becomes pretty important. So we definitely don't want to be screwing our other party members. Always be a good player who's nice to your fellow players, but if we're careful here and in the right environments, we can use this to get a permanent advantage on our enemies, while they get permanent disadvantage against us. Now, if you've been watching this channel for any length of time, you'll probably notice this combination, which seems so excellent, is no longer recommended in any of my builds. Today I'm going to go over why that is. If you'd be interested in supporting this channel, you can do so through Patreon. There is a link in the video description. I'd like to thank some top-level patrons today: Joseph Van Horn, Josh Davis, Joshua Samuel Apple, Justin Times, K.J. Aurelio, Kurt G., Lee LeMay, LaFerja, IGW, Marlon Rooks, Martz, Math Guy Dave, Nathaniel McCauley, Nick Lutz, Nick Simmons, Nines Tempest, Odessian, PCZ, Pedro DeVaca, Prometheo NTG, Ramen Goblin, Rohit, RVSP66, Rise Squy, and Sajin Abraham. Thank you all so much for your support. Let's get started. So, just like anyone, I learn with experience, and in the past 3 years I've had many chances to play and DM with many different groups, and the combination of Elven Accuracy, Devil's Sight, and more recently sometimes Blind Fighting, and then the Darkness spell is a combination I've seen in play many times now. And I've come to the conclusion that if I want to stick with the recommendation I made in the video, that we should always be a good player, making this combination central to any build just doesn't meet the criteria. So in this video, first I'll explain the combination, how it works, why it looks so good on paper, and then I'm going to explain that why, despite that, I don't ever recommend it anymore. So let's start with how it works. So first, we probably have to be an elf or a half-elf to get the Elven Accuracy feat. Here's Elven Accuracy. So first off, it's a half feat, meaning that in addition to providing a benefit, it also allows us to increase an ability score, in this case Dexterity, Wisdom, or Charisma. Then secondly, whenever you have advantage on an attack roll that uses Dexterity, Intelligence, Wisdom, or Charisma, you can re-roll one of the dice. In other words, instead of rolling 2d20 with advantage and taking the best result, you're rolling 3d20 and taking the best result. So that's going to give you a huge improvement to your chance to hit, as well as your chance to get a critical hit, as long as we can get advantage on our attack roll. Without advantage, this provides no benefit at all. So if we take this, we want to figure out how to get advantage as often as possible. Here's where the rest of the combination comes in. First, let's look at the Devil's Sight invocation. You can see normally in darkness, both magical and non-magical, to a distance of 120 feet. So what's notable here is the ability to see normally in magical darkness, because when we look at the darkness spell, magical darkness spreads from a point you choose within range to fill a 15-foot radius sphere for the duration. The darkness spreads around corners. A creature with dark vision can't see through this darkness, and non-magical light can't illuminate it. So magical darkness doesn't just block vision, it blocks dark vision as well, but Devil's Sight creates a special exception. If we look at the rest of the spell, we can see it uses concentration, lasts up to 10 minutes, and you can cast a spell on an object you're holding, and it moves with the object. We can also see that if the darkness overlaps with an area of light created by a spell of second level or lower, the spell that created the light is dispelled. So most obviously, this means the light cantrip gets immediately dispelled if the light it creates interacts with magical darkness. So if our character with Devil's Sight casts darkness on an object they're holding, like maybe their weapon for example, the darkness moves with them, surrounding them in a 15-foot radius sphere for up to 10 minutes. They can see through the darkness, and creatures relying on normal sight, non-magical light sources, light spells, or dark vision can't see through the darkness. So if we look at the relevant rules on vision and light, we can see the following. A heavily obscured area, such as darkness or other things, blocks vision entirely. A creature effectively suffers from the blinded condition when trying to see something in that area. And the blinded condition says, attack rolls against the blinded condition have advantage, and the creature's attack rolls have disadvantage. So the enemy who can't see through the darkness suffers the blinded condition. But since we can see through the magical darkness, we don't. So they have disadvantage on their attacks, and we have advantage on ours. So just how effective is this? Well, let's look at a hypothetical character. They have a longbow, dexterity of 18, extra attack, and the sharpshooter feat. We'll say that they're 6th level. So that would be plus 7 to hit, minus 5 from sharpshooter, so plus 2 to hit. With a d8, so 4.5 on average, plus 4 from dexterity, plus 10 from sharpshooter, that's 18.5 damage if they hit on average. So against an armor class of 16, they'd need a 14 to hit, so 35% chance. So 35 times 18.5, 6.48 plus critical damage, so 6.7 average damage per attack. If we had 2 attacks, that's 13.4. The baseline I used to determine what decent damage would be at this level says that we should be looking at least 16.5 damage to be doing relevant damage at all. So this character is doing suboptimal damage. Now, maybe we could throw a hex spell on there, or a hunter's mark. Well, that's 3.5 times chance to hit. After everything, it becomes an additional 2.8 DPR. So we're up to 16.2, and we're still not meeting baseline damage. But let's say instead of concentrating on hunter's mark or hex, we concentrate on darkness instead. Well, then we're still doing 18.5 average damage on a hit, but our chance to hit jumps from 35%. This is how it works. So with Elven Accuracy, what happens is basically we cube our chance to miss. So 0.65 times 0.65 times 0.65 equals 0.27. Our chance to miss is now 27%, and our chance to hit is now 73%. So 73 times 18.5, that's 13.51. Chance to crit is now 14%. So add crit damage, and it's 14.14. With 2 attacks, that's 28.28 damage per round. Now we are 71% over my baseline damage. This is almost double what we would do with these same attacks enhanced with a hex spell. We can boost it further than that if we get Crossbow Expert and then use a hand crossbow for a bonus action attack, or we combine it with Hexblade Curse, or any other way to increase our chance to score a critical and do extra damage on a critical. But just based on what I already presented, just using this combo gives us a bonus of 12 damage per round versus concentrating on something like Hunter's Mark or Hex. So why wouldn't I recommend this all the time? And really, it's because the results on paper and the results in your actual game are not going to be the same. Also, we're going to have consequences that this math did not account for. Let me go through the reasons why I never recommend this anymore. So first, we're not playing a solo game. Or at least normally we're not playing a solo game. I mean, maybe if you are, then this is going to be more attractive. But let's assume we're not playing by ourselves. My thought process when originally presenting this as a combination is if we were playing a longbow user, we could simply make it so nobody's in our area of darkness, but our character. Simply do this by hanging back far enough so the other characters aren't covered. And that does sound good in a vacuum, but let's look at what actually ends up happening. So here's a map from an official publication. We came up against some gnolls. We have some melee characters up front, let's say a fighter and a cleric, and our wizard is hanging back, and here we are with our darkness in the middle. The round circle you can see is the area of darkness, and you can see it does move with us. So we're supposed to just move to where our darkness doesn't interfere with our party members. Well, good luck. So if we were to go forward and try to get that wizard out of the area, well, then what would happen is we put both our melee characters in the area, and whatever plans they had to get advantage on their attacks are now destroyed. But it is a lot worse than that. Let's say our fighter is a rune knight. Well, if they get hit with a critical hit, they're looking forward to using their cloud rune. one of their best features. Except, looky here. They need to be able to see, so they can't use it. Oh well, maybe they'll use their stone rune. Oh wait, no, that gets nullified by darkness as well. What about their best rune, storm rune? Nope, cannot be used without line of sight. What about runic shield? Nope, can't use that unless they can see. Basically, we've taken everything cool and fun about their character and we have taken it away from them. But we're not done screwing over our party, not by a long shot. Because here's our cleric. Guess what they want to do? Of course, they want to cast Spirit Guardians. Except, if they cast Spirit Guardians, it says you can designate any number of creatures you can see to be unaffected by it. So our cleric can't cast Spirit Guardians because they can't see the party to exclude them. So we've taken the best thing they can do away from them as well. So let's go back to our wizard. Well, they can launch a fireball. Radius is a bit big here, but they made their character deal with just such an issue because they're an evoker, and they get sculpt spells, which allows them to exclude the party from the fireball's effects. Except they can't, because sculpt spells requires you see anyone you want to exclude. So we've effectively screwed over every member of our party. Okay, so what if we just went the other way? So maybe we go down here or something. So I guess the idea is we would shoot and then we would back off. But what do we do next round? We don't have the movement to go all the way back in and all the way back out again. So suddenly our damage is halved. So we're doing less damage than if we weren't relying on this trick at all. And the clerics still can't exclude us from their Spirit Guardians, by the way. And this is a best case scenario, because I'm assuming our character won initiative. So what if we didn't win initiative? Well, then our fighter is screwed, the cleric is screwed, and the wizard is screwed. Now, I've read online that one possibility in this kind of situation is that our character covers up the item. So we go back to the darkness spell, and we can see right here that covering the source of darkness blocks the darkness. So maybe we can use our cape and cover up the bow. Then on our turn we could unfurl it and shoot, except we only get one object interaction on our turn. So when it's not our turn, we either have it covered or we don't. And we can't change that until our turn. And even then, we can either uncover it and shoot, and then it remains uncovered and we're messing up the rest of the party, or we leave it covered and we lose our advantage. And once again, the combination isn't working the way we said it would when we came up with our damage per round numbers. What ends up happening is a choice. We either do the extra 12 points of damage at the cost of all the other players getting to do what they built their characters to do, which is kind of the ultimate selfish kind of playstyle, or we don't do the combination we counted on for our character to be effective. And this is one environment I'm showing here as an example. But there are countless examples where our environment is going to mess us up. Like maybe we're here, or maybe we're here. Let's just say there's way more cases than you might otherwise think. And I gave a few examples where it might mess up our allies, but those two were just a small selection of the possibilities where our characters might get screwed over by our spell. It screws over spellcasters, it screws over weapon users, it screws over everyone who didn't plan on this combination. But it's actually worse than that. Let's say maybe we have this situation. Surely now we can expect the DPR we thought this combination was going to get us. No, we can't. Because now we're going to bring up the next issue. Not every creature relies on regular sight or dark vision. In this case, the creature has blind sight, so they can see you just fine. Here are 18 pages of creatures published that have blind sight. And we don't stop there. Here's another 8 pages of creatures with true sight, and true sight sees through magical darkness as well. And we don't stop there. Here's 3 pages of devils. Devils have devil sight. That same invocation we took to see through our magical darkness. So that's 29 pages of creatures. How much is that? Well, you know how everyone says poison damage sucks because so many creatures are immune to it? Here's all the poison immune creatures. 28 pages. But we're not even done. Darkness blocks non-magical light and dispels spells of up to 2nd level that create light. Well, first off, there are spells that create light that are higher than 2nd level. So we cast daylight and we see through the magical darkness. But it doesn't stop with spells because we don't need a spell to create magical light. For example, here's a Moontouch sword. This is a common magic item. Sheds magical light in a 15-foot radius, and it's not a spell. So it can't be dispelled, and it will light up a darkness spell. And there are a lot of magic items in the game that generate light. So when it comes to reliability, this combination is probably worse than relying on poison damage. And this is where we should probably talk about a party where everyone takes Devil's Sight. Because I hear this one. Why doesn't just the entire party make characters that have Devil's Sight and are made to take advantage of this combination? Because then we're not screwing each other over. And that's true. At least if everyone's on board, then you're not screwing each other up. Except then you have an entire party counting on this combination. And yeah, when it works, it is going to make encounters super easy. And when it doesn't, which will be regularly, and the frequency will increase as you increase in levels, then suddenly every party member has invested significantly in a combination that just got shut down. So we make some encounters easy and really easy, and others really difficult. We suddenly put this weight on the shoulders of our DM to account for this swinging mechanic we decided to universally apply to our party. But here is what bothers me most of all. 3 years ago when I discussed this combination, even then, before it became popular online and before I'd experienced it in play, I knew that it was a potential problem for the rest of the group, and I gave warnings about it. Now, it's important to remember when you're using this combination, darkness isn't always party friendly. So where you're positioned compared to the rest of the party becomes pretty important. So we definitely don't want to be screwing our other party members. Always be a good player who's nice to your fellow players. But now I see this commonly discussed online. And those warnings, instead of getting louder and more pronounced, as they should be, have become increasingly glossed over or not repeated at all. And I've seen this used in groups where it went okay. And I've seen this used in groups where it created hard feelings between players because some players are unable to use their characters as they were built because someone else is messing them up with their darkness combo. And even if this wasn't the case, I'm not sure this combination is worth it. But if anyone is going to have a worse time playing D&D because another player is throwing up darkness to do this combo, then it's definitely not worth it. As for the darkness spell itself, I think it's just fine. It has its uses. When a party gets attacked by a pack of kobolds, you'll be glad you have the darkness spell. But if you make a character that relies on having this spell active all the time in order to be effective, I think you're going to run into issues with creating bad feelings with the other players, removing the fun things their characters can do. You're going to have problems with the reliability of the combination, and getting results significantly less impressive than they looked on paper. Which is why I stopped recommending this combination as a way to make this character work. So now if a build needs this combination to work, as far as I'm concerned, it doesn't work. And I'm not going to be obfuscating that on this channel. I hope that was informative, but if you've tried this combination or had another player try this combination at your table, I would love to hear your experiences in the comments down below. Otherwise, until next time, I'm going to sit back, relax, and have some fun. D&D is for everyone. Thanks everybody, and I'll talk to you soon.